thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me and welcome back. I just want to say, if you're watching or listening and you have been sexually abused, this is a trigger warning because you might find this very distressful, but I will be giving out some information, numbers of people you can contact, and why you should talk about it, because my next guest demonstrates very clearly, as difficult as it is, it needs to be talked about. Former EastEnders actor Stuart Antony recently broke his silence on the sexual abuse he suffered as a child after waiving his anonymity following the conviction of paedophile Billy Nutt. William Nutt was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment following a trial at Maidstone Crown Court. Nutt, who once supported Shirley Bassey on tour, committed a series of offences with 3 separate victims between 1998 and 2007. He was later charged with 21 sexual offences involving children, and although he pleaded not guilty, he was convicted after a 12-day trial. Now, Stuart decided to attend the concluding part of the trial to see justice done. And Stuart very bravely joins me now to talk about how he suffered so long in silence and maybe why, if you've gone through something like this, why you shouldn't. Stuart, thank you so much for joining me to talk about something that I know when it comes to sexual abuse, there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of, oh my God, how could this happen to me? So it is very difficult to talk about. So I don't take the fact that you've chosen to talk to me today very lightly. Can you go right back to how old you were and how you met William Nutt or Billy Nutt?
I was 10 years old. He was a friend of my mum's. My mum worked in a pub. She was 17, 18, and he was in a band, and he was just one of the many bands that came there, and they became friends. And then over the years, their relationship grew. He went away working, was on tour, and then they met up again when I think I was about 5. And I remember that day. I actually remember, some people say that you don't remember that far back. I actually remember that day, the first day that I met him at 5 years old, being introduced, him ruffling my hair and giving me £1 or whatever it was for sweets, was with my brother and sister. And yeah, it was very, very clear. But then I had no idea of what was to come. Moving forward, my brother and I went car washing to make some money when we were sort of 10 years old. And we always knew him. He lived on the estate where I grew up. And he always had these big flash cars, big Rolls Royce. So it was an honour to go and wash a Rolls Royce as a kid, to go and earn a £5 or whatever it was. So we knocked on his door. He knew my mum. And said, we said, do you remember us? We're Julie's sons. Do you remember us? And he said, oh yeah, come in, boys, come and wash the car. And it was as innocent as that. We cleaned the car, that was it. And then one day I was walking back from school, walked past his house, and he was putting the bins out, I don't know, whatever he was doing. And he said, do you want to come in for a drink? Like, come in for a Coke or something like that. And again, that's how it started. That grooming process, I would walk past every day. I would have friends with me. Sometimes I would bring friends in to have a drink or, a snack and, chat. And again, it was all very, very innocent, to the point where we looked at him like an uncle. We were very close. He'd come to my mum's house. And then one day I went round and I was by myself, and that's when the abuse started.
When did you cross the line? Because as you say, he made you feel very comfortable. He was like an older mate, if you like. Can
Absolutely.
You remember, or is it too painful to talk about the actual time when he crossed the line?
No. I can remember the very first time. It was winter, and I remember it because he had a little house, and he had an open fire. So I remember that. I remember him having a sheepskin rug in front of the fire. I mean, these were things that I hadn't seen before, so it was great for me. An open fire, sheepskin on the floor, all that sort of stuff. And I think he would realise that these were little things that he could use to groom me with. It might be that he had more. I didn't have a posh upbringing. We didn't have money. So he may well have more chocolate in his cupboard than we did at home. All these sort of things. He may well have fizzy drinks where my parents may not have let us have fizzy drinks at that time. All those little things. And they might sound silly. And people go, how can you groom someone with a can of fizzy drink and a chocolate bar? You know, you can. You can groom anybody with absolutely anything if you know how to do it.
So I'm guessing that that time, and you talk about the rug, that he touched you inappropriately. Would that be fair to say?
And it started off. It wasn't full blown at the worst it could be, but it was certainly that was the way, leading that way. Yeah, it might have just been a little pinch or a little tickle, and you know, looking back now, it's very inappropriate, especially for somebody you don't really know that well. Even if you do know somebody that well, you wouldn't do that. When did it cross that line where you felt, I don't know, what did you feel, yucky or special or a whole mixture of things? It's very hard. Yeah, it was a mixture of things. It was special. I think it's the way he made me feel, that I was the only one, I was special, but it was our secret. We weren't allowed to tell anybody, because I wouldn't be special then, because other people might want to be involved. So yeah, it was that. But I also felt scared as well. I was 10 years old. I didn't know that this wasn't something that happened when you got to 10 years old. You don't know that. As you get older, you learn. But at 10, you don't know. I was a kid, and I was a baby. You know, I've got kids of myself. My daughter now is the same age. Absolutely, yeah. My daughter is the same age now. Of course you do. You put your trust in them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're saying your daughter is the same age now, and it must horrify you, absolutely horrify. Oh, I couldn't even imagine, you know, if she had to go through something like that at her age now, how I would feel. I can't even comprehend that. Yeah, it's awful. Again, we've got to take a break in just a moment, but what I want to do after the break is talk about how that affects you, because, you know, certainly we'll talk about this. There comes a stage when you know that it's wrong, because that's something that we have to learn, because as you said before, you trust adults. Yeah, and absolutely. And the effect that it had on your life and the behaviors that you adopted just to cope with that horrible, horrible thing that you've gone through. Let me just remind people, I will be giving out numbers at the end of this interview with Stuart Antony if you've been affected by anything we're talking about. We'll be back with more with Stuart Antony, talking about the awful abuse he went through and seeing his abuser jailed right after this. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Just let me say, if anything you hear in this interview that I'm doing with the very brave actor Stuart Antony about his abuse at the hands of jailed paedophile Billy Nutt, if anything you hear really triggers something inside of you, maybe something you've never talked about, I will be giving out the numbers at the end of this so that you can get some help and support, whether you're ready to talk about it openly or not is another question. Let's come back to you, Stuart. And when was that point when you knew what was happening to you, what Billy Nutt was doing to you was wrong? I mean, because there are those feelings of shame and oh my God, it's my fault, which of course it wasn't, and all of those things, and him saying this is our secret and don't tell anyone. When did it get to a point when you felt you had to do something or had to say something, or did you ever? I think when I got to puberty, that sort of age, I was interested in girls. So, you know, he would never let me grow, if you get what I mean. I would never be allowed to go out with girls. He would always make me feel guilty about getting girlfriends. Even later on in life, even towards the end of the abuse. What would he say? What would he say?
Yeah.
You
What was
don't
he
need a
saying to
girlfriend.
stop
You
you
don't
doing
need
that?
a girlfriend. You know, you don't need a girlfriend. You know, you'll be fine by yourself. You know, all those sort of things. And I was at the age where I wanted to explore. I wanted to go out with girls, and I wanted to do the things that young boys do. And that's what I was, a young boy.
Yeah, yeah. And I should remind people that Billy Nutt was jailed for 18 years. Did you at any stage think that maybe you were gay or something like that? Because was there confusion about your sexuality because that's all part of the shame and the grooming?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I did at one point. Yeah. I think I established later on that I wasn't. But yeah, it was, yeah, it's very hard to even now to get my head around that one. It's hard on that one.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that too much.
Yeah, you've had a lot of counselling, but what did you do to deal with those feelings when you finally broke away? Because there are coping mechanisms people employ just to try and keep those demons down.
Well, I've had this for 20 years, and you know, it's not something I thought about every single day. I must say that it's sometimes, you know, when there's good days and your mind's taken off with the good things that are happening, you're able to forget for that moment. And there are other days where you can think about it every day for a couple of weeks. But I met my partner that I'm with now 12 years ago, and she only found out 6 years into our relationship that this had happened. And the only reason she found out is because I came forward to the police. Now, I only came forward to the police at the age of, this was nearly 7 years ago. And it took that long for the investigation to progress, get to court, and get the conviction. But, you know, she found out stuff in court that I didn't want to tell her exactly what happened. It makes you, it's hard for men anyway to talk about feelings and all that sort of stuff. And actually, something that I learned this week is actually 1 in 6 men are or have been sexually abused at some point in their life. And that's a crazy statistic, the 1 in 6 men. And you know, there'll be people that never talk about it. And I was going to take it to my grave.
I was going to say that if you don't talk about it, I mean, until you heard that he'd abused other boys, I'm guessing that you thought you were the only one. So therefore it was your fault.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I thought, you know, I couldn't come forward as a kid. I didn't think that I would be believed. You take, sometimes, a lot of the time, adults take kids, whatever kids say, with a pinch of salt. I know I do with my girls sometimes. They say, "Oh, Dad, you know, this happened." You know, "Oh, did it? Okay, all right then." And that's what I worried about. And, you know, I didn't want to get him in trouble. Not even so much myself in trouble. I didn't want to get him in trouble. He was an adult. He was well respected. He was, you know, lots of people knew him. He was quite popular. He did television work, and he also used that side of it to groom me. You know, I wanted to be a singer and an actor from a very young age, and he would then use that to groom me. You know, we can make this happen for you. And it all comes back. It's a bit like the Jimmy Savile situation.
Yes,
which,
I was going to say.
It's only now that people now that are talking about it, and it's mad. But that's why I wanted to. This is why I came forward to the press, because all I want is for people to. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but I want people to talk about it. I want especially men to talk about it, even if they don't come forward to the police, which is very, very hard. I must say, is hard, but. What a weight lifted off your shoulders when you do. It was, amazing. But if you can talk to one person you trust, drink, yeah. Gin was my best friend for a long time.
Yeah. Rather than
never
talk
touch
about
drugs.
it, do anything.
Yeah, it was easier. Have a drink, block it out, wake up the next day. Hopefully that'll be a good day. You won't think about it that day. Or you'll have such a hangover that you that will take your mind off everything that's going, or you'll just carry on drinking again. Yeah, I don't think I was an alcoholic, but I certainly felt that that was the path that it was going down unless I talked to somebody. Now, what happened in 2017 is that he abused a 4-year-old boy. And once that conviction had been, put in place, he was in prison. That's when I knew. I thought, I can't let this go on. If he's doing it to 4-year-old children, where will he stop? So I did. I came forward, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to sit there and tell these police officers that this had happened, and to real intimate details. At that point I was in my late 20s.